concern that come up with the recent fire that's appeared in the eastern part of our area over on the campfire, as it's currently called. By the way, we don't usually record these things, but somebody called and said, "Oh, I can't be there tonight. Can you please record it?" So I succumbed. But yeah, and just to address some of those, and I came back with, I said, "Oh, okay. Well, maybe an appropriate title would be, this world is swiftly passing," and it's kind of in recognition of the swiftness with which these kinds of disasters, whatever it is that's happening, can spring up and change things very quickly for us. And then kind of wrote back and said, "Is that a bit too bleak? Is this a bit too bleak of a title?" And then she offered to she came up with an extension of how can we stabilize our minds and gain wisdom and courage to help round that out a little bit. So I've been thinking about that a little bit, and thought that it might be useful to talk about that a little bit this evening. It's an interesting time that we live in. I was thinking about this because we're seeing changes in some of these kinds of natural occurrences. We had a person from CAL FIRE come out and do a regular inspection on our property last week, and was talking with him just about things and how their approach to fires is changing because the nature of fires is changing. They're becoming much more unpredictable, much more devastating, much more intense, and lots of kinds of what you call fire behavior that are different from what's been the common experience in the past. So they're having to reevaluate their strategies and recommendations and things like that, because we've been having these devastating occurrences on a regular basis last year, this year, as big examples. So there's all sorts of the theories about why that's happening, fuel management, climate change, late rains, all the different kinds of factors physically that go into it. But I was just starting to think of our experience, my experience. I've lived more than 60 years, and just starting to get a sense of really actually how stable my life has been for the most part. Growing up in a fairly privileged white middle class, upper middle class background, and mostly stable times within our own country, and fairly predictable climate issues, natural issues, and as strange as it might seem, I was also, saw a documentary a couple of years ago. It was called The Great Peace, and that despite the fact that in our lifetimes, we've seen things like, possibly the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and other, the tensions in the Middle East, and there's always something going on somewhere. But despite that, really, this period of time since World War II has been called by some people the Great Peace, just because of the sheer number of lives that have been lost in previous wars like World War II, World War I, and on back. That this period of time since then is drastically different. It's been by looking at the sheer graphs and the sheer numbers, it's been a relatively stable period of time. In the world, even though we can point to all sorts of things that feel unstable and painful and difficult. But in a comparison, this has been a relatively stable, period of time. And, there seems to be ripples in that now. There's a lot of, the whole climate issue, the fires, there seems to be a lot of increased anxiety and tension in the political, social arena, a lot of polarization in our country. It's to those of us who have been living in a pretty stable period of time, it catches our attention, and in some cases it brings up a sense of fear, a sense of anxiety. It's sort of like, what's happening? What's happening out there, and how can I cope with this? What can I do to help have a sense of stability, a sense of security? It's unsettling for a lot of people. So we have to kind of go back and look at what our expectations are, what the roots of this, the sense of concern, where does that come from? And then is there something we can do to help give ourselves a greater sense of security and stability in a very rapidly, swiftly changing world? That quote that I was just mentioning, "This world is swiftly passing," was actually a quote from an old Hindu, ancient Hindu text, from one of the heroes who had an insight, and his insight was, "I see it now, that this world is swiftly passing," and it's an insight that we should all consider. Not as a way of inducing fear or anxiety, but as a way of seeing the way things truly are. Because generally speaking, we seek a sense of stability, a sense of refuge in the external world around us. And when that's threatened, when external conditions change, it brings up this sense of rawness. And unless we've really, looked at it honestly, we can get easily lost and confused. And so we have to ask ourselves, some really honest questions. There's really no easy answer. We try and fix the outside world. We try and stabilize the external circumstances. We try and, take action where we think we can take action. We, get involved in social, political kinds of things. We speak up. And all of these things are very good things, and not to be dismissed in any way, not to be bypassed in any way. But if we're doing it from any state of confusion or any kind of aversion, then, or any kind of craving, then that state of mind will necessarily limit the effectiveness of whatever action we take. So the more we can get clear inside of ourselves, and the more we can develop a sense of inner stability and clarity, the more effective we can be when it comes time to take some sort of action. And in fact, I would not hesitate to say that I think that's the most important place to focus, is on the interior qualities, and let the action that's appropriate come from that rather than the other way around. And so we have to ask ourselves, okay, why is it that I look for stability in things that are inherently unstable? Why is it that I look for satisfaction in things that are inherently unsatisfactory? And we have to be very honest about the world around us and our place in the world, and the balance of the internal and external qualities and events. And ask ourselves, what is it that I'm really taking refuge in? if I take refuge in trying to make everything back the way it was in times of stability, by tweaking the external conditions, then that might be useful for a period of time. That might help for a period of time, and it might even help for a relatively long period of time if what we try and adjust or alter or experience is of a relatively wholesome nature. And we can find some sort of senses of, happiness, satisfaction, gratification in those various kinds of pursuits that, if they're, again, of a skillful, wholesome nature, may last for a period of time. But eventually, usually as we get a little bit older, for most of us, or some very wise young people, like this guy over here, people cop on to the fact that there's got to be something more to the picture, and a place to look on the inside for a deeper sense of very long-term stability, and a point of reference that we can look inside of ourselves, that no matter what comes up in the world, no matter what manifests, that we don't have to be overwhelmed by it, that we can accept things that are part of the natural results of causes and conditions, whether they're natural occurrences in the world or the way people are, or the movement of cultures and governments, of war and peace, those cycles that evolve, good times, bad times. We can be with those kinds of conditions, do our best to respond skillfully to increase the wholesome things, but not be overwhelmed when we can't control everything. And there is a path to understanding that, and it's not found in the world of the external world. It's not found in the world of conditions. It's not found in the world of cell phones and emails and electronic media, all the things that we are involved with, including myself on a daily level. So if we're really interested in a sense of security, long-term stability, refuge, we really have to change our focus. And the Buddhist path, which many of us are familiar with, kind of spells it out, and it spells it out in some kinds of honest, deeply, straightforward terms. In that, really, one is never going to find a long-lasting sense of permanent stability in any conditions in the world. No matter how skillfully we can create the world around us, how much we can eliminate, aversion, greed, how much we can create positive conditions, that if one is honest and one is looking over many thousands of years of history and looking into the future, that there's always going to be these cycles, these waves of goodness, of difficulty, of unskillfulness, of skillfulness, that history, cultures, worlds arise and persist and decline along those lines of increase and decrease, of good and bad, happiness and difficulty. That these cycles over the long periods of time of world existence, that there's this long-term perspective that we have to keep in mind and realize that as long as human beings have any kind of greed, hatred, and delusion as the root causes of suffering, that these cycles will continue. And again, we as active, living human beings have to participate and do the best we can in these worldly conditions. And if we really want to create an end of suffering in its totality, that we can do that on an individual level if we really take a very honest look at where we take refuge. So the Buddha offers these Four Noble Truths. That's the primary teaching of the Buddha, the Four Noble Truths. And the first one is the recognition that there is this dukkha, this unsatisfactoriness. And before we can really do much of anything to quell our anxieties, our instability, our fears, we have to own up to the fact that there is no guarantee, as it says in the Constitution, there's no right to the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. Our Constitution guarantees that as a right, but that's not actually the way it works in the world. There are these periods where we have those, and there are periods when we don't. And we have to realize that really anything that's based on causes and conditions has the nature to arise, to persist, and then to pass away. This sense of anicca, this sense of instability in the world around us is inherent. It's part of nature. Everybody who is born will sometime pass away. After a short time, after a long time, it varies. But it's just the nature of the world. And if we try and seek a sense of stability or permanence in that which is inherently unstable and impermanent, then that is where the fear, the anxiety, and the suffering come from. When we can truly see and understand that First Noble Truth, then it's, rather than being a bleak kind of a thing, there's a sense of okay, this is an honest look at the world, and this is the way it is, and I need to accept that. And even though it's a kind of a hard truth, it is the truth. And asking ourselves that question, what really is the truth right now? The truth is that I'm feeling anxious because of instability. I'm feeling fearful because I want things to be stable, and they're not. And so we have to really begin at that beginning place of acceptance that life, illness, good times, bad times, skillfulness, unskillfulness, death, these are all part of nature. These are all part of the natural cycles. We can try and maximize the skillfulness, maximize the wholesome attitudes, wholesome ways, and that will bring a greater sense of peace and clarity. But we can look around us and see that not everybody's always engaged in that, and we have some sort of modicum of control around the people that we engage with and that we live with, but we don't have an ultimate sense of control. We don't have an ultimate control over the world around us. We can try and do the most skillful things we can, but we have to accept that governments and people natural disasters in the way of the world and climate change are happening. And that the best we can do is to respond skillfully from a place of clarity and refuge, and that refuge has to be in what is the truth. And the truth is that there's always going to be the nature of change. So the Buddha offers, a skillful set of paths if we want to find a true sense of refuge. The only place we're going to find absolute stability is in this fathom-long body and mind, as he calls it. We have to develop the very skillful qualities that he talks about along the Noble Eightfold Path. And I think that the way that Linda phrased the question actually was quite insightful. I don't know how intentional it was, but brought up several qualities that we can really cultivate to help quell our sense of anxieties, our sense of fears around the world as it is. She says, how can we stabilize our minds and gain wisdom and courage? And when I think of the three words, the stabilize, wisdom, and courage, they bring up to mind the basic three qualities of mind development that the Buddha talks about. Courage, in a sense, being courage. I put them in this order: courage, stability, and wisdom, being along the lines of sila, samadhi, and panya. That the quality of courage is something that we can come to experience largely through the development of virtue, the development of sila. If we act in a way that is geared towards creating the most harmless, gentle way of being in the world, say by following precepts, by taking the precepts not to harm other beings, by taking precepts not to lie and cheat other people or take advantage of them, then we go a long, long way to helping to create a sense of fearlessness in the world, a sense of, okay, well, at the least, even if my mind is a mess, if my fears and anxieties are getting the better of me, then I can fall back on this reflection that I'm trying to live as harmlessly as I can and trying to surround myself with people who will support me in that, into creating a sense of refuge in at least the fact that we can feel good about what we have done and what we haven't done at the end of a day. And we can reflect on that and use that as a way to help say, well, maybe the world is falling apart around me, maybe I don't have any control, maybe it all feels like it's all out of control. But what is in control is the moral quality of my life, how I live in the world, how I tread in the world, and that the effect that I have on other people is one with kind intention to be supportive and harmless. And to be able to reflect on that so that no matter what's happening and what is fear-inducing or anxiety-provoking that's happening out there, no matter how much we feel out of control, that we can turn to that reflection of, well, at the very least, I'm living a good life. And if I were to die right now, if this fire were to come and overwhelm me and take charge of my whole world around me and everything were to be destroyed, at least I can reflect that I have not intentionally harmed anybody, today, or this week, or this year. I've not taken advantage of people. I've not stolen things. I've not, caused pain in any intentional way. And this is a place of refuge. This reflection on the goodness that we can bring into our lives through virtue, through following precepts. And the courage that comes from that, to be able to look around us and see the difficulties from that kind of, that peaceful state of mind, of self-reflection on what our state of mind is, even in the threat of change, of life-challenging situations. We've got that fallback. That's the basic fallback that we can all have, no matter how good our meditation is, or how much wisdom and understanding we've created, or how far along we are on the path to enlightenment. If we've got the basic stability in sila, in morality, then that goes a tremendous distance in helping to quell our fears. The word that she used, stabilize, I think could be also related to the development of samadhi or peaceful stillness, concentration in our meditation practice. And we really need that boost. That's the muscle, the strength that keeps us going along the path. And if we just keep ourselves constantly engaged and responding to the circumstances around us and to the people around us, without taking time to be quiet, to calm down the proliferative processes, then we'll never be able to see clearly enough how it is that suffering is created and how we can, gain wisdom. So a certain stability of mind is really important to capitalize on the virtues, the sila that we practice in our body and speech. We need to calm the mind to be able to see those patterns of fear and resistance and anger and irritation and craving. If we don't stabilize our minds, then we just keep revolving around them very easily and get wrapped up in them and can't really make the most of our practice. So stabilizing our mind through giving ourselves the permission, the time in the morning, the afternoon, or the evening, at least once or twice a day, to sit down, stop, breathe, feel the body, and let things just quiet down. And with that kind of stability from precepts, from helping to quiet the mind, quiet the activity, disengage, then we can start to get greater insight and reflection to develop the wisdom. The wisdom to really see on a deep level, not just on a reflective or external level, the arising and passing of the world around us and of not only our external circumstances, our bodies, the change in our bodies, the eventual passing away, but to see that kind of change on a momentary basis. The fact that right here and right now, there's this constant flux, this constant movement of experience. Everything right here in this very moment is arising and passing, almost within the moment. And that gives one sees that deeply with a stability of mind, then one really is able to get a perspective on the world around us. And we see that there is this constant flow of experience, and that the quality of it is largely dependent on the moral quality of which we live our lives. And if we can start to let go of that need to gain happiness and satisfaction from externals, and just be content with the knowledge of the stability, the point of reference of the knowing mind, that pure knowing awareness that doesn't get entrapped with the illusions of the world, that doesn't get trapped in the stories, but that sees the ultimate peace and stillness as a place of refuge, as a place where there is no suffering, because there is no craving, there's no movement towards the pleasant, there's no aversion towards the unpleasant. There's this vast equanimity with all that arises and passes away, so that we can let go of that need to seek something external to that pure awareness to find any kind of refuge in, and just come to rest in the knowing mind. Then that's where we really start to gain the wisdom and the stability and the clarity and the peace with which we can then operate from to respond to the conditions around us, do what we can, let go of trying to fix that which we can't fix or influence. And then we can not only have that sense of stability inside our own hearts, that sense of clarity, but then we can be the most effective actor that we have to be as we respond to the world around us. So those are just a few thoughts triggered by Linda's question and comments about disasters. How do we cope? How do we stabilize our minds in a world that's swiftly passing? So I'd like to just open it up to any questions or thoughts from people.
Thank you, brother, for fearlessly going where some people want to go. Talking about climate change, I think of like the Buddha, who, his act to show he was, like enlightened. He was there, he like touched the earth. The earth being that stable kind of place where, anyway, I'm thinking about, you mentioned about taking refuge. And, for me, that's been a very important aspect of, my practice, taking refuge in the Buddha, who was a human being, in his teachings, the Dharma, but then also the Sangha, and which, at least in my tradition, the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition, the Sangha is very prominent. That I never felt I was going to make it as a sage, and so I realized, cultivating some insights and some stability on my own, but I also feel like I have others. To the extent they have my back, but at least they're there, and we're kind of like supporting each other. And so maybe to some extent you feel that, being there at the monastery. But I just wonder if you would touch on, for some of us, we have varying degrees of support.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we have a VHS tape that has Dharma talks or something, but just the value of having others practicing that just kind of help support us.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up too, because I'd actually, when I was thinking about this evening, I was thinking I need to make sure I reference the Sangha as a refuge and kind of got lost in my other ramblings here. But absolutely, that, particularly in times of difficulty, I mean, in all times, but even, more so in times of challenge, difficulty that we face, that refuge in the Sangha is, very, very, very crucial to the practice. And in fact, I'm sure many of you have heard this over and over again, that the story of Ananda going to the Buddha and saying, having that kind of insight, saying, blessed one, the Sangha is half of the holy life. And the Buddha admonishing him and saying, no, Ananda, don't say that. The Sangha is not half of the holy life, it's the whole of the holy life. Stressing the importance of having, people around you who have the same values, who support the practice, who will be willing to tell you when you're veering off to the side, who can give you, words of encouragement, words of wisdom, and that you can also do the same for in exchange. Because, particularly in moments of fear and anxiety, some of our coping resources have been stretched, and we feel lost, and sometimes the only solution is to find somebody to share that with, and to get some sense of validation, and then to get another perspective to help bring us back to clarity. So at the monastery, so often we get people who come and visit us for periods of time, and they talk about their practice and the difficulties that they're having, and oftentimes they're people who are trying to do it on their own. And I find myself over and over and over again saying, it's so important for you to find Sangha, to find support, to find a group that has at least some shared values, even if it's not the perfect situation, or if they don't practice in exactly the same format or style that you do. I remember very vividly before I became a monk and was practicing as a lay practitioner up in Seattle, I was having trouble connecting with a group, from the tradition that I was enjoying. I was getting to know this particular tradition more and more, and there wasn't a very stable group up there. And there was a very stable group in the Tibetan tradition, run by a nun, Thubten Chodron. She had her practice and group up in Seattle, and very good reputation, impeccable standards, but not my tradition. And Ajahn Amaro, who was just here last week, was encouraging me, and he did. He just said, well, there isn't a Theravada group in Seattle that has much stability, but you need the support of like-minded people. Why don't you go and study and hang out with Thubten Chodron's group? Oh, but they're Tibetan, that's not my tradition, blah, blah, blah. And he said, it doesn't matter, they're good people, they're doing good things, they have good values, you need the support. Go and spend time with them. So even if we can't find the perfect situation, perfect meaning, to our particular likes and dislikes, that kind of, if it's good enough, if the people have good values, if they're intent on precepts and have basic qualities, even if there's some qualitative differences, find refuge there, take some refuge. So, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
I feel struggling currently with the question of the difference between acceptance and passivity.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think, oh, I've gotten in this situation because I've just kept on being open-handed about it when I needed to be decisive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Could you speak to that?
Yeah, it's a learning curve, that one has to get a sense of that balance through just, experience, trial and error, making mistakes, reviewing, readjusting, and openness, or that sense of I'm trying to think of what was the word you used, not before, what versus passivity?
Acceptance.
Acceptance, right?
Yeah, true acceptance versus
True,
kind of
right.
passivity.
Right, and so getting to know what is clearly seeing something and accepting it and allowing it and realizing that it's the truth of the way something is a different quality than passivity, and that there are certainly times when you're presented with different experiences that require boundaries, that require strong statements of like, no, that's not right, and it has to be based on some sense of rightness and wrongness. A lot of times, I think in our current culture, and oftentimes in meditation teachings and Dharma situations, Western the way it's come into the Western world in some of the Dharma centers has been trying to be this kind of like totally neutral, valueless kind of almost amoral. It's like anything goes, kind of an attitude, but really that is really an unfortunate misinterpretation of some of the teachings, at least from the Buddhist tradition, and that there's very clear wholesome and unwholesome conditions and actions, skillful and unskillful, things that lead to more confusion, more greed, more delusion, and things that are supportive of moving away from that. And there is a real moral efficacy in the practice, and if someone is engaged in harmful behavior, then it's our moral duty not to fall into that ourselves, or not to question that sense of moral efficacy within ourselves based on somebody else's insistence that they have the right to act or behave in a certain way, in a morally neutral environment, because actions based on intention do have results, and if there's harmful behavior going on, particularly through unskillful intention, based on greed or anger or confusion, then it does have a moral consequence. And you don't have the moral obligation to just accept that if it's somehow in your life or affecting you. You have the duty to yourself to say, no, that's not right. I can accept, in a sense, that somebody else is doing this, and it's based on their conditioning, and maybe it's based on their confusion, and I can have compassion for that. But I can draw a line as to how much I want to engage with that or allow that into my own sphere of existence. And to say, yeah, I understand that this is your feeling or your view, and there's a place where that's coming from, but if I were to do that, if I were to agree with that, I can see that there would be this harm that would come from that, either to myself or to others. So I can't accept that. So you have to be clear enough, with enough courage to know that, and to say, no, I'm not. I don't agree. I'm not going there. But that takes wisdom, and time to get that balance, without squashing or repelling or dismissing or turning away from somebody. But you also don't have to pick it up, and agree with it.
I think if I could say it with the calmness that you just said it, it would be a clue that I was seeing it more clearly.
Yeah. Well, that just comes with a lot of reflection and stabilizing the mind. And when you're confronted with those kinds of dilemmas, or you're in that kind of a situation, to be able to step back, and if you have to disengage with the situation or with the person for a period because there's some confusion or I'm not sure, then you have to give yourself the permission to say, I'm not clear on this, I'll come back to it when I'm more clear. And then to purposely go and spend some time stabilizing, quieting, coming back to the body, and then allowing yourself to actively reflect. If I were to follow up on this, or if I were to agree to this, where is it going to go? What's the possibly most logical conclusion that moving into this, or agreeing or not disagreeing or whatever, where is that going to lead? Is it going to lead to peacefulness, to skillfulness, to non-harming, to those kinds of values that we hold, for long-term stability, long-term peace of mind? Or is it going to lead in a direction that moves away from that? And then when you feel clear enough and certain enough in yourself, then you can go back, engage in the situation if you need to, with that clarity and calmness that speaks a whole lot louder than any kind of, immediate reaction that's based on fear or anxiety or unclarity. So it just takes that time, and you have to give yourself that permission to get that clarity before actually feeling like you have to respond.